Hey everyone, I'm Eric. In my line of work, you see a lot of stuff come through the door. Some of it's junk, some of it's interesting, but every now and then you get something truly special, something with history. And that's what we're talking about today. Norway's most valuable and historically significant coins. I'm going to walk you through the heavy hitters, the kind of pieces that make a collector's heart skip a beat. We're not just talking about shiny metal, we're talking about pieces of history you can hold in your hand from the days of kings and vast silver mines. This is your complete guide to the pinnacle of Norwegian numismatics. For each coin, I'm going to give you the full story. We'll cover the background, what was happening in Norway when this thing was minted. Then, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of why it's so valuable. Is it the rarity, the design, a mint error? I'll tell you. And you know me, I'm all about the bottom line, so we'll look at real-world market examples and what these things have actually sold for at auction. I'll bring in my experts, metaphorically speaking, to give you the inside scoop on what makes these coins command such high prices. It's a deep dive into a fascinating world where history and value collide. Now, one thing you always got to remember in this business: value is a moving target. The prices I'm going to talk about are based on recent auctions, but a coin's worth really depends on a bunch of factors. The auction house it's sold at, the professional grade it receives, and its provenance. That's the history of who's owned it before. A coin that once belonged to a king or a famous collector, that adds a premium. And of course, it all comes down to collector demand. You just need two people who really want it. So let's get started and see what treasures Norway has to offer. All right, let's start with the big one, the Holy Grail. We're talking about the Frederick III 3 Speciedaler from 1666 with the FG Mintmaster's mark. When a coin like this comes up for sale, the whole numismatic world stops and pays attention. This isn't just a coin, it's a statement. It was minted during the reign of Frederick III, a king who was consolidating absolute power in Denmark, Norway. These large denomination coins weren't for buying bread and milk. They were presentation pieces, made to show off the wealth and power of the crown, likely gifted to high-ranking officials or foreign dignitaries. It's a piece of political propaganda from the 17th century. The silver for these coins came from the Kongsberg silver mines, a source of immense wealth for the kingdom. The mint master at the time, Frederick Gruner, put his initials FG on these pieces. Now, why is this specific coin so valuable? First, size matters. A 3 Speciedaler is a massive piece of silver weighing around 87 grams. It's impressive just to hold, but the real key is rarity. We only know of a handful of these in existence. When you have something this historically important and this rare, you've got a recipe for a record-breaking price. It's the ultimate trophy for a collector of Scandinavian coins. Think about the context here. 1666. The Great Fire of London happened that year. The world was a very different place. This coin was struck by hand with incredible artistry. The portrait of Frederick III is powerful, surrounded by Latin inscriptions proclaiming his titles. The reverse often shows the crowned Norwegian lion. Every detail tells a story of royal ambition and the natural wealth of the land. It's a masterpiece of Baroque-era medallic art, not just a piece of currency. The craftsmanship is just on another level compared to your standard circulation coins from the period. It was made to impress, and it still does, over 350 years later. So let's talk about the bottom line. What's this thing worth? Back in 2018, one of these came up for auction. The room was buzzing. This wasn't just any sale. It was at the prestigious MDC Monaco auction. When the gavel finally came down, the price was a staggering 400,000 euros, which at the time was about 432,000 US dollars. That set a world record for a Norwegian coin. It blew past all the pre-auction estimates. That's what happens when a masterpiece-level item with extreme rarity hits the open market. It becomes less about a book value and more about how badly the world's top collectors want to own a legend. The specific coin that sold for that record price was a beauty. It had an incredible provenance, meaning its ownership history was well documented, tracing it back through several important collections. That adds a ton of value. It was also in fantastic condition for a coin of its age. You have to understand, these large silver coins are soft and prone to damage. Finding one that hasn't been banged up, cleaned or mounted in jewelry over the centuries is almost a miracle. The combination of historical significance, extreme rarity, massive size, and a pristine state of preservation is what pushed this coin into the stratosphere. When you look at the portrait of Frederick III on this coin, you're looking into the eyes of a man who fundamentally changed the Danish-Norwegian kingdom. He introduced the King's Law, the only formal constitution of an absolute monarchy in European history. This coin is a physical embodiment of that absolute power. It's heavy, it's ornate, and it's unapologetically regal. It wasn't meant for the common person, it was meant for the elite. Owning it is like owning a piece of that royal court, a direct link to the corridors of power in 17th century Copenhagen and Christiania. The mint master, Frederick Gruner, is another part of the story. His FG mark is a sign of quality and authenticity. Mint masters in this era were important figures, responsible for the integrity of the kingdom's currency. Their marks are a key diagnostic for collectors. The fact that this coin, one of the most important in Norwegian history, bears his mark, ties it directly to the man responsible for its creation. It adds another layer of historical texture to an already fascinating object. It's details like that separate good coins from truly great ones. So, is it possible to find one of these? For the average person, probably not. You're more likely to find a longship in your backyard. These are millionaires' coins traded among the highest echelons of the collecting world. But knowing about them is crucial. They are the benchmark. They set the standard for what is possible in Norwegian numismatics. They are the dream piece that every collector, no matter their budget, looks at with a sense of awe and admiration. It's the pinnacle of the mountain. In the end, the 1666 3 Speciedaler is more than a coin. It's a historical document, a work of art, and a symbol of royal power. Its record-breaking price isn't just about supply and demand. It's a reflection of its immense cultural and historical importance. It's the undisputed king of Norwegian coins, and its story is a perfect example of why we get so passionate about these little pieces of metal. They connect us to the past in a way that few other things can. It's history and it's money. My two favorite things. So we talked about the king, now let's talk about another heavyweight. The Frederick III II Speciedaler from 1658, specifically the one minted in Christiania. This coin is another one of those pieces that gets collectors really excited, and for good reason. It's got a unique story. 1658 was a big year. Norway had just fought a brutal war with Sweden and lost a lot of territory in the Treaty of Roskilde. But then, King Charles X, Gustav of Sweden, decided to attack again, laying siege to Copenhagen. This was a moment of national crisis. It's against this backdrop of war and uncertainty that this coin was created. But here's the interesting part. It wasn't made at the main mint in Kongsberg. It was struck in Christiania, which we now know as Oslo. This was highly unusual. The Christiania mint was a much smaller operation, and it didn't typically produce these large, high-value coins. The fact that they did suggests this was a special issue, likely created for a very specific purpose. It's what we call a presentation piece. Not for spending, but for showing. The craftsmanship is distinct. Because it was made at a different mint, it has a slightly different look and feel compared to the Kongsberg issues. The portrait of Frederick III is there, but the style is unique to the Christiania engravers. The coin itself is a double Speciedaler, a hefty chunk of silver weighing around 58 grams. This was serious money, but again its purpose was likely symbolic. In a time of war, producing a large, beautiful silver coin was a way for the king to project stability and wealth, even when things were looking grim. It was a defiant statement. The value of this coin comes from that unique story and its incredible rarity. Very, very few were made, and even fewer have survived to this day. It's a coin that ticks all the boxes: historical context, rarity, unusual mint location, and it's a large, impressive piece of silver. When you're a serious collector, you're looking for things that are out of the ordinary. A standard coin is one thing, but a special presentation piece struck at a secondary mint during a major war, that's a whole different level of desirability. Let's get to the numbers. One of the finest known examples of this coin came up for sale at an auction by Thomas Hoyland in Denmark. The pre-auction buzz was huge. This was a coin that hadn't been on the market for a very long time. When the bidding started, it just kept going up and up. The final hammer price was an incredible 1,150,000 Danish kroner. At the time, that was well over 150,000 US dollars. That price reflects not just the coin's rarity, but its status as a legendary piece within Scandinavian numismatics. The particular coin that achieved this price was exceptional. It had a sharp strike, meaning the details of the design were crisp and clear. It had beautiful old cabinet toning, a type of natural coloration that coins develop over centuries of being stored properly. Collectors go crazy for that stuff. It's a sign that the coin hasn't been harshly cleaned or messed with. Its provenance was also top-notch, having been part of several famous collections over the years. It was the complete package. When you hold a coin like this, you can almost feel the history. You can imagine it being presented to a loyal nobleman or a military commander in Christiania, a reward for their service during a dark time for the kingdom. It's a tangible link to the defense of the realm. The city of Christiania itself was still relatively small back then, and the minting of such a magnificent coin would have been a major event. It's a piece of Oslo's history, just as much as it is a piece of Norway's history. The reverse of the coin is just as interesting as the front. It typically features the Norwegian lion holding an axe, the national symbol, inside a circle of shields representing the king's territories. It's a complex and beautiful design, executed by hand by a skilled engraver. Every element was designed to convey a message of power and legitimacy. In the 17th century, coins were one of the most important forms of mass media. They were how the king showed his face and his power to the people. So, while the 1666 3 Speciedaler might be the absolute king, this 1658 2 Speciedaler from Christiania is right up there with it. It's a coin with a fascinating wartime story, an unusual origin, and extreme rarity. Its high auction price is a testament to its importance. It proves that in the world of collecting, the story behind the object is often just as valuable as the object itself. It's another one of those dream coins that showcases the best of what Norway has to offer, a real treasure. Now, I want to talk about something a little different. Not just one coin, but a name that every serious collector of Scandinavian coins knows and respects. Le Brun. Lars Emil Brun was a Danish businessman, a butter magnate of all things, who lived from 1852 to 1923. He wasn't just rich, he was a passionate and brilliant collector. He assembled what is arguably the greatest private collection of Scandinavian coins ever put together. We're talking thousands upon thousands of coins, from the Viking Age all the way to the early 20th century. What made Brun's collection so special was his eye for quality and rarity. He didn't just buy one of everything, he sought out the best of the best. The finest known examples, the rarest varieties, coins with incredible histories. His collection included a staggering number of Norwegian coins, many of which were the single best examples known to exist. He had an almost academic approach, documenting everything meticulously. His collection wasn't just a hoard, it was a systematic library of Scandinavian numismatic history. It was his life's work. Brun's will was very specific. He stipulated that his massive collection should be preserved as a reserve for the Danish royal coin and medal collection in Copenhagen. If, for any reason, the national collection was destroyed or lost, say in a war, Brun's collection would be there to replace it. For decades, it sat in the vaults of Frederiksborg Castle as this shadow collection. But after a certain period passed, and the national collection remained safe, his will dictated that the collection should be sold at public auction, with the proceeds going to his descendants. That auction finally happened, conducted by the firm Rasmussen in Copenhagen, over a series of sales starting in 2014. And it was an event of epic proportions. Collectors from all over the world flocked to Copenhagen or bid online. When coins from the Eli Brun collection come up for sale, they command a huge premium. Why? It's all about the provenance. Having a coin that can be traced back to the Brun collection is like having a certificate of authenticity and quality all in one. It's the ultimate seal of approval. Coins with a Brun pedigree are instantly recognizable. They often have a beautiful old toning and are in a remarkable state of preservation because they were locked away and cared for nearly a century. When these coins hit the market, they set record after record. Many of the highest prices ever paid for Norwegian coins were for specimens that came from this one collection. It single-handedly reset the market for high-end Scandinavian numismatics. The auction catalogs themselves have become collector's items. Let's look at some examples. Many of the rare Speciedalers and ducats from the 17th and 18th centuries that we know of today were once in Brun's hands. A coin that might be worth, say, $10,000 on its own could be worth $20,000 or $30,000 simply because it has the Brun provenance. It tells a story. It connects the current owner not just to the king who minted the coin, but to the greatest collector in the field. It's like owning a painting that was once owned by a Medici. The history of ownership becomes part of the object's value. The Brun collection contained an incredible number of Norwegian rarities. We're talking unique patterns, trial strikes, and presentation pieces that exist in no other collection, public or private. For specialists in Norwegian coins, the sale of the Brun collection was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire pieces that had been off the market for 100 years. It was a gold rush for the numismatic elite. The excitement was palpable in the auction room. So, the lesson here for any collector is the importance of provenance. Keeping good records of where you got your coins, any old collection tickets or envelopes they came with, that stuff matters. The story of who owned a coin can be a huge value add. Le Brun is the ultimate example of this. His name is magic. If you're ever looking at a high-end Norwegian coin and the description says ex Le Brun, you know you're looking at a world-class piece with an impeccable history. In the end, Le Brun wasn't just a collector. He was a custodian of history. He preserved these incredible pieces of Norwegian and Scandinavian heritage for future generations. His foresight in creating his shadow collection and his dedication to quality have left a permanent mark on the world of numismatics. The sale of his collection was a landmark event, and the Brun premium is a very real phenomenon that continues to influence the market for rare Norwegian coins today. It's a legacy written in silver and gold. All right, let's move into an era that's a bit more modern and for many collectors a bit more accessible. We're talking about the classic gold coins of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Specifically, the 20 kroner gold pieces minted under King Oscar II and later King Haakon VII. These aren't million-dollar coins, but they are beautiful, historic, and highly collectible pieces of Norwegian gold. They represent a fascinating period of transition for Norway. These coins were part of the Scandinavian Monetary Union, which was established in 1873 between Denmark and Sweden. Norway joined 2 years later, in 1875. This union created a gold standard where a kroner in Norway was equal to a kroner in Sweden and a krone in Denmark. The coins were interchangeable throughout Scandinavia. This 20 kroner piece was the workhorse gold coin of that system. It contains 8.96 grams of 90% pure gold, which comes out to about 0.259 troy ounces of actual gold content. So right off the bat, it has a significant intrinsic value just from the gold. The first series was minted under King Oscar II, who was the king of both Sweden and Norway. These were struck from 1877 to 1902. The design is classic and elegant. You have the portrait of the king on the front and the Norwegian coat of arms on the back. They are beautiful examples of late 19th century minting technology. But the really interesting part of the story comes with the end of Oscar II's reign over Norway. In 1905, the union with Sweden was peacefully dissolved, and Norway became a fully independent nation for the first time in centuries. After the dissolution of the union, Norway chose a Danish prince, Prince Carl, to be their new king. He took the Norwegian name Haakon VII. This was a huge moment in Norwegian history, a moment of immense national pride. To mark this new era, a new 20 kroner gold coin was issued in 1910. It featured the portrait of the new, independent Norwegian king, Haakon VII. While it was the same size and weight as the Oscar II coins, its symbolic value was immense. It was the first gold coin of a newly independent Norway. So, why are these valuable to collectors beyond their gold content? For the Oscar II coins certain dates are much rarer than others. The mintages varied from year to year. For example, the 1877 issue is much more common than, say, the 1885 issue. Collectors love to assemble date sets, and finding those key low mintage dates can be a real challenge. Condition is also paramount. Most of these coins circulated, so they picked up scratches and wear. Finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition, what we call mint state or MS, is tough, and those coins carry a big premium. The Hakon, the 7th 20 kroner from 1910, is a one-year type coin. They only made it in that single year, with a mintage of just over 124,000. Because of its historical importance as the first gold coin of independent Norway, it's incredibly popular with collectors. It's a must-have for any serious collection of Norwegian coins. Again, condition is everything. A standard, slightly worn example might trade for a small premium over its gold value. But a high-grade, gem uncirculated piece, graded MS65 or higher, that can be worth several $1,000s. Let's talk about market values. A common date Oscar II 20 kroner in average circulated condition will typically sell for a little bit over its gold melt value. You might pay a 5 to 10% premium, but if you find a rare date in high grade, the price can jump dramatically. An 1885 in a high mint state grade could fetch a few $1,000s. The 1910 Hakon the 7th coin is similar. A nice uncirculated one might be in the $800 to $1,200 range, but a true gem that gets a top grade from a service like NGC or PCGS could easily be $5,000 or more. What makes the high-grade examples so special is their eye appeal. They have full mint luster, the satiny or frosty sheen that a freshly struck coin has. They have no distracting marks or scratches. The details of the king's portrait and the coat of arms are perfectly sharp. These were the coins that were likely saved right when they were minted, perhaps put away in a drawer and forgotten. They are time capsules, showing us exactly what the coin was meant to look like the day it left the mint over 100 years ago. For someone looking to get into collecting Norwegian coins, these 20 kroner pieces are a fantastic entry point. They are historic, they are made of gold, and they are beautiful. You can start by acquiring a common date example, and then, as your budget and knowledge grow, you can hunt for the rarer dates or the higher grade specimens. It's a tangible piece of the story of Norway's journey to independence. A story told in 90% pure gold. It's a classic, and you can't go wrong with a classic. In the coin collecting world, sometimes the most interesting and valuable pieces are the ones with mistakes. I'm not talking about a coin that's been run over by a train. I'm talking about subtle errors made at the mint. One of the most fascinating types of these errors is the overdate. This is exactly what it sounds like, a coin where one date has been punched over a different, previous date on the die used to strike the coins. These little quirks give us a peek behind the curtain at the minting process of the past. A great Norwegian example is the 1824 over 1/2 Speciedaler. Let's break that down. The coin is dated 1824, but if you look very closely at the last digit of the date, the 4, you can see traces of a 1 underneath it. This means the die used to strike this coin was originally intended for a different, earlier use, possibly for a medal or token dated with a 1 in that position. For whatever reason, maybe to save money, maybe they were in a hurry, they didn't make a completely new die. They just took the old one and punched a 4 over the 1. This kind of thing happened a lot more than you'd think, especially in the 18th and 19th centuries. Die making was a difficult and expensive process. Dies were made of steel and were engraved by hand. If a die was still in good shape at the end of a year, a thrifty mint master might not want to just throw it away, so they would punch the new year's final digit over the old one and keep using the die. It was a practical, cost-saving measure that, centuries later, creates a rare and desirable variety for collectors. Why are these so appealing? For one, it's the thrill of the hunt. You have to know what you're looking for. To a casual observer, an 1824 Speciedaler is just an 1824 Speciedaler. But a knowledgeable collector will get out their magnifying glass and carefully examine the date, looking for those faint traces of the digit underneath. Finding an overdate in a dealer's stock or in an old collection is a huge rush. It's like finding a hidden secret. These varieties also tell a story about the mint. They give us clues about their practices, their economic pressures, and the skills of their workers. An overdate isn't just a mistake, it's a historical artifact of the minting process itself. It shows us that these were workshops run by real people trying to do a job, not some sterile perfect factory. Sometimes they took shortcuts, and those shortcuts are what we now find so interesting. From a value perspective, rarity is the key driver. For any given coin, the overdate variety is almost always much rarer than the normal date. The mint might have only used that altered die for a short period before it broke or was replaced. This means only a small fraction of the total mintage for that year will be the overdate variety. And when you have low supply and high demand from specialist collectors, the price goes way up. An 1824 Speciedaler might be a valuable coin on its own, but the 1824 over 1 variety can be worth many times more. Let's look at some recent sales. A nice, problem-free example of a Norwegian overdate or a significant die variety can sell for thousands of dollars at auction. An 1824 over 1/2 Speciedaler in a good grade, for example, would be a major prize. Auction houses that specialize in coins like Stax Bowers or Heritage will often highlight these varieties in their catalogs with detailed photos showing the overdate clearly. The bidding on these lots is often fierce among collectors who specialize in this kind of minutiae. It's not just overdates either. There are all sorts of other varieties to look for. There can be repunched mint marks, where the mint mark letter was punched twice in slightly different positions. There can be die cracks, where the die itself started to crack from use, leaving a raised squiggly line on the coins it struck. There are double dies, where some element of the design appears doubled. Each of these little flaws creates a distinct and collectible variety. For any collector, paying attention to these small details can pay off big time. It requires patience, a good magnifying glass, and good reference books or websites that document these known varieties. But the reward is finding something that 99% of people would overlook. It turns coin collecting from just filling holes in an album into a treasure hunt. So next time you're looking at an old coin, don't just look at the big picture. Look closely at the date, the mint mark, the lettering. The devil and the value is often in the details. Okay, let's fast forward to the modern era. You might think that all the super valuable coins are hundreds of years old, but that's not always the case. Since the 1990s, the Royal Norwegian Mint has issued a number of limited edition commemorative coins, many of them in gold. These aren't meant for circulation. They are created specifically for the collector market. And because of their low mintages and precious metal content, some of them have become quite valuable. A great example is the series of gold coins issued for the 1994 Winter Olympics in Lillehammer. This was a huge event for Norway, a moment of immense national pride. To celebrate, the mint produced a series of commemorative coins in both silver and gold. The gold coins, typically with a face value of 1500 kroner, are particularly sought after. They feature designs related to the Olympics, things like ski jumping, speed skating, and the Olympic flame. They are beautifully designed and struck in high-proof quality. What makes these modern coins valuable? It comes down to two main things: limited mintage and collector demand. The mintages for these modern gold commemoratives are often tiny. We're talking just a few thousand pieces, sometimes even less. For example, the 1992 1500 kroner gold coin for the Olympics, featuring a speed skater, had a mintage of only 6,000. When you compare that to the millions of coins struck for circulation, you can see why they are inherently scarce from day one. These coins are usually sold directly from the mint, often as part of a subscription or in a special presentation case with a certificate of authenticity. This packaging is important. Collectors of modern issues want the complete package: the coin in its original capsule, the box, and the paperwork. A coin that has been taken out of its holder or is missing its certificate will be worth significantly less. It's all about originality and completeness. This is very different from collecting ancient coins, where the coin itself is all that matters. Let's talk about the market for these. When they are first issued, They are sold at a set price, which is usually a significant premium over the gold value. After the issue is sold out, the coins enter the secondary market. Their value is then determined by supply and demand. A 1500 kroner Olympic gold coin, which contains about a half ounce of gold, will always be worth at least its melt value. But for popular issues with low mintages, the collector premium can be substantial. Some of these coins can trade for double their gold value, or even more. Besides the Olympics, Norway has issued gold commemoratives for other important events and anniversaries. There have been coins honoring famous Norwegians like Henrik Ibsen and Edvard Munch, coins celebrating milestones in Norwegian history, and coins featuring the reigning monarch, King Harald V. Each one has its own story and its own mintage figures. Collectors often try to build a complete set of all the modern Norwegian gold issues, which drives demand for every coin in the series. The appeal of these coins is different from the old Speciedalers. You're not buying a piece that has passed through hundreds of hands over centuries. You're buying a modern, perfect, pristine work of art. The minting technology today is incredible. The designs are often incredibly detailed, with frosted devices and mirror-like fields, what we call a cameo-proof finish. They are stunning to look at. For some collectors, this modern perfection is more appealing than the rustic charm of an old, hand-struck coin. It's also a more predictable market. The mintages are known, the population of perfect-grade coins is high, and values are closely tied to the price of gold, with a collector premium on top. It can be a good way for someone to invest in both gold and a collectible at the same time. You have the floor of the gold price, with the potential for upside from the numismatic demand. It's a different strategy than hunting for rare 17th century varieties. So while the history might not be as deep, these modern commemorative gold coins are an important part of the Norwegian numismatic story. They represent how Norway celebrates its culture and history today. They are limited, they are beautiful, and they are made of gold. For a collector looking for a modern focus, or for someone who just wants to own a piece of the Lillehammer Olympics, or honor a great Norwegian artist, these coins are a fantastic option. They prove that valuable treasures are still being made today. So there you have it. From massive hand-struck Speciedalers of the 17th century that are worth a fortune, to the beautiful gold coins of the modern era, the world of Norwegian numismatics is incredibly rich and diverse. We've seen that the most valuable coins are often the great rarities, the presentation pieces, and the coins with an impeccable provenance like those from the Brun collection. But we've also seen that there are fantastic, accessible options for collectors at all levels. Whether it's a classic 20 krona gold piece or a modern commemorative, the key is to find the story that speaks to you. No matter what you collect, there are a few things you always have to remember. If you think you have a valuable coin, get it authenticated and graded by a reputable third-party service like PCGs or NGC. Document everything you can about its provenance. Keep old receipts, auction tags, anything that tells its story. When you buy or sell, always work with reputable dealers and auction houses, and be careful. The market for rare coins is also a market for counterfeits. If a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. Do your homework. This is a hobby about history, art, and the thrill of the hunt. Every coin has a story to tell, and building a collection is about weaving those stories together. I hope this guide has given you a good starting point for exploring the incredible coins of Norway. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives like this, and let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Norwegian coin? I'd love to hear about it.